Big weather for Chattanooga. Partly cloudy and 90 today. It's going to be hot right through the rest of Riverbend. Sorry. 65 at Big 95.3.
All right, we've got Operation Song in studio today. I think we should kind of explain again briefly what Operation Song is.
All right. For those of y'all who don't really know Mac and Cheese that well, we moved here a year ago, and we started on the air on this little country station called Cat Country 95.3, which is now on 106.9. Well, after we'd been here about 5 minutes, we got a call from this lady from Heartland Therapeutic Services, and her name is Bobby. And Bobby contacted us and asked if we'd be willing to talk to the Operation Song people. And I said, I've heard a little bit about this, of course. Bring them in. Let's have a chat. And Mac and I got so connected to this organization just immediately. We just felt like the stuff that you guys do is so important to our veterans, people who have done so much to help us. So this is where we met Don Goodman. Good morning, Don. How are you, honey?
I'm fine, Janice. You sure look pretty this morning.
Thank you. I found my clothes. Finally got a little bit unpacked. Well, it's this is. Can you explain what Operation Song is for people who maybe new to Big 95.3 and new to Mac and Cheese and don't know what it is?
We are professional songwriters, and we work with music therapists, and we sit down at the table with veterans and active duty military, their families, their children, and all these people have all this hurt and angst and stuff inside them that they just can't get out. They can't tell nobody. It's so private. It's so locked inside them. And somehow or another, when we pick up that guitar and start strumming, they start talking, and we all start crying, and it's just so special.
And now we have this music therapy program here at Erlanger every week, and that's what you guys are doing in town today.
And Chattanooga, thank you from the bottom of our hearts for being so supportive and giving us this opportunity. We have 6 new veterans, our first class up there, and it's just amazing to watch them. They're forming into a squad, a group, and they're sharing, and they're all opening up, and we're writing some incredible songs.
And this is the important thing. Veterans with PTSD, it's so important to tell your story. And so I was having lunch with the Operation Song people about 2 months ago, and there's a fellow that comes in and records our stuff on video every week. His name is David Rose, and I had a conversation with David at this luncheon, and I felt like I was grilling him, but he handled it very well. So I'd like you to welcome him to Mac and Cheese. David, thank you so much for coming in this morning.
David?
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Now, I was fascinated by your story, and I told you after we met that day that for me, you were the poster child of PTSD, because a person can look at you and never tell there's anything happened to you. So I want you to, if we can start from the beginning kind of and explain what happened. You're a Vietnam era vet.
Yes.
Did you sign up voluntarily?
No. Out of high school, I attended Southern University, and I wasn't prepared for college. I was goofing off. I was failing my grades. And unfortunately, I was drafted out of college and didn't really want to go into the Army, obviously, and certainly didn't want to participate in war. So as I went in, I chose to serve as a conscientious objector, which means that we don't carry weapons, we don't kill people. And by default, I became a medic. That's what conscientious objectors do. And so ultimately, I was levied to Vietnam and served as a medic there in the war.
Now, you showed us a picture in the studio that you brought with us this morning. It's you taking a frag out of the leg of a pilot. What happened that day?
Ooh, that's a long story, but to make it as short as I possibly can, we were on a dust-off recovery mission, which is a medevac helicopter recovery mission into a very hot area. And as a result, we were shot down and recovered. And that picture was taken in the emergency room, and I was removing a frag from my pilot's leg. And after the procedure, we were actually flying again within an hour, going back to that hot spot to recover more casualties.
Now, how old were you in this picture?
I was 20.
Wow.
Just a kid. So you served your time in Vietnam. How long were you there?
About a year.
And then you came home. What happened then?
Well, that's another war. When I returned stateside, I ETS, which means in term of service, and flew from Seattle to San Francisco. And as I deplaned in San Francisco, I was met with some angry protesters who actually thought it was a good idea to throw food at me. And so that was somewhat of a traumatic experience for me. Here I was coming home from war as just a kid and thinking that, I had served my country and felt like a hero in some degree. And so I was met with this anger, and it was just an absolute surprise. It certainly was something I didn't expect. And all I really wanted to do was just go home and see my friends, Mm-hmm. So that was another one of the issues that I'm still today receiving counsel for, and it was pretty devastating. It actually, that moment with food on my face actually affected my attitude and my approach to the general public for the rest of my life. It was devastating to me.
I feel like so many veterans from that era too can share your story, and that's why I feel like it's so important to hear this.
Absolutely. I learned that the more therapy I received from the VA, the more numbers of veterans who are just like me, who experience exactly the same thing. And for 45 years, I thought I was in this alone, and I am not. I mean, there are people out there who are probably listening to this broadcast right now who don't even know what's wrong with them. They know that there's something going on in the background, but I was there for 45 years and finally was able to acquire some help, and it's good.
When I've looked at all the work you've done with PTSD since you found out, obviously, since you were diagnosed, you've been in a lot of support groups and you've helped a lot of other people. But how did you come to the diagnosis of PTSD? How did we get there? It was a long process, wasn't it?
It started back in 1971, actually. A year after my return from the war, I was diagnosed with internal bleeding and went to a VA hospital in Florida. And they couldn't find the source of the bleeding, but they did give me a diagnosis of nervousness. And, of course, PTSD had not yet been described and named. Mm-hmm. And they sent me home. And 2 years after that, in 1973, I went back to the same hospital, the same diagnosis of bleeding, and they sent me home and said, good luck, with another diagnosis of nervousness. And there was no treatment, no interest, no cure, and it was really quite primitive.
Did you feel like you were crazy? Did you feel like you'd gone crazy or something?
Oh, absolutely. I was crazy. I didn't feel like it. I was. And ask any of my friends. I did some pretty bizarre things, and still do sometimes.
When we talked the first time you and I had a real dialogue about this, you mentioned the anger and resentment. Did most of that stem from the coming home experience, or was there more anger and resentment, even just having been sent and?
Well, I think there's a lot of anger from the war itself, in that we were out there and not allowed to actually win the war. Imagine being 20 years old, out in the field, 10,000 miles from home. It's cold, it's dark, people are shooting at you, trying to kill you. And you're radioing in, trying to get permission to return fire, and you can't get it. So it's a very desperate, lonely, frustrating situation in which to find yourself. And so where do you direct that anger? I mean, does it go to Washington, D.C.? Does it go to the president? Who's in charge? And so, yeah, sure, there's a lot of anger from the war, and then there's anger from my reception and my return. But I've been on a mission since then to support our returning troops from Iraq. And I even attend return parties and receptions at airports when I know absolutely no one who's returning, just to support our troops. And so I'm on a mission to give back and try to fix things and give back to my brother veterans and help them seek and find help for what their problems are.
One of the things David has done, he wrote a book. It's called Some Wounds Don't Bleed. And you also wrote a song that we're going to play in just a minute. Do you want to tell us about your song?
Sure. It's called And I Sit. I was in therapy one day a few months ago, and as I was leaving my therapy, my therapist said to me, David, just don't sit and think about your PTSD so much. And that was a bizarre statement, especially coming from a professional. So I went home and I wrote this 2-line piece, and it goes like this. I don't sit and think about my PTSD. My PTSD thinks about me, and I sit. So it's a quick little reversal piece, but it certainly gets to the point very quickly, and it's turned into the focal point of this song. Here it is, And I Sit.
Okay. We're going to play that for you in just a minute here. And when we'll be back with David Rose and more of his story from Operation Song. If there's something that, by the way, operationsong.org is their website. If you know a veteran that needs their help, please reach out. And if you can make a donation, we'd love to take your money too, because it costs a lot of money to put these retreat weekends together. And these songwriters do everything for free. They come from Nashville and they go all over the country and all over the world to help veterans. So if there's something, if you have a veteran that needs your help, please let them know. All right, 7:55. This is Big 95.3. Big weather, another scorcher today. 90 in the sunshine, 65 at Big 95.3.
Right, so let's continue this conversation with David Rose.
All right, we're talking about
really
Operation Song, which is a music therapy program for veterans with PTSD. Now, David, if you were listening a few minutes ago, Vietnam-era veteran, conscientious objector, you were drafted out of college and really had no say in this. And when you came home, people were really horrible, as they were in that era. There were a lot of people that were against the war, just like you were. And when people came home, soldiers came home from the war, they spit on them in airports, and in your case, they threw food at you. And how traumatizing for our veterans who came back. I mean, I'm just heartbroken that happened. I guess, there is some understanding of how they felt, but that was no way to handle it in my mind. And so I'm glad to see that we treat our veterans different today. And David, I think you and people like you are a big part of that. For the last 45 years since you've been home, you do help other veterans. You reach out to other veterans, and I think, as you said off the air, this is part of your coping mechanism for your PTSD, is instead of doing drugs, gambling, having a sex addiction, all those things that a lot of PTSD vets get into, you got yourself real busy.
Yes. So through the course of my life, the last 45 years, I've been involved in many projects, many hobbies, took call seemingly every day in my profession, and just bombarded myself with busyness and duties, just to bury my feelings and not face them for 45 years. And then as I acquired the retirement age and started to slow down a little bit, all of these demons that I've been bearing for 45 years came back, and seemingly in one day. And it just hit me all at once, and it's been with me ever since for the last 2 years.
So, how can you just explain a little bit of how your life changed when all this came roaring back? It is it's paralyzing.
Well, it is. I remember the day that it happened, September 25, 2013. I was in my VA doctor's office, and she gave me a PTSD screening, and she asked me a battery of questions, and they were the absolute right questions to ask, because devastated me with these questions, and I felt like I was being bombarded with my past, and I just absolutely broke down like a little baby in her office, and I found myself in mental health within 30 minutes in front of a psychiatrist in the VA office. And so that was just the beginning of this long journey of PTSD counseling and care and medications and alternative therapies, and it's been nonstop for the last 2 years.
Was it at least good to have some sort of a diagnosis?
It was, because for 45 years, I didn't know what was wrong with me. I knew I had PTSD. I told people I did, but I continued to run from it. I didn't want to face it. I didn't want the stigma. I had a profession. I didn't want people to know how sick I was. So I lived as a facade for 45 years. I wore a mask, and I didn't want people to really know what I was thinking and feeling.
I think that's really important to note, because a lot of our veterans come home and they, they're trying to be stoic. They're trying to be like our World War II vets, and coming home and not talking about their problems. I can handle this. I'll just hold on to it all. But that's really not the best way, is it? You got to let some of it go.
No, you really need professional assistance, I found, and I could not have done any of this on my own. I've seen 10 doctors in the VA for my PTSD in some degree, and I have constant counselors and group sessions and so forth, but I could not be functioning at all today had it not been for professionals around me who have given me wonderful assisting and counseling and therapies.
How important was it to write your song, And I Sit?
Well, first of all, it was healing in numerous ways. Healing to, first of all, express my story and to write the actual song. And then I think it was more rewarding and healing to actually be able to repeat it in the privacy of my home or my car and just hear it over and over again. I'm not sure exactly how I feel when I hear this song. I'll have to digest that a little bit more and describe it somehow a little bit later maybe, but I'm drawn to it, and I don't know why, but it's just healing for me to be able to continue to review those words and continue to digest them in some way. So I'm very thankful to Operation Song for providing this vehicle for me to, do some healing.
Yeah, it is important. It is important to talk about it. And the songwriting process, as Don Goodman said, Don, step up to Sean's mic over there, or come on around to mine here. When you're writing these songs with these people, it's really, it's cathartic for you too, and you weren't even there.
Oh, I leave a session writing, and I feel like I'm walking 10 feet off the ground, because I think maybe, just maybe, we might have helped a little bit. Yeah. And you know what? Like David says, listening to his song is healing for him. There's other guys out there who are going to hear this song. It's going to be healing for them, too. The song in itself is a doctor.
That's what this whole thing is about.
That's what it's all
with David
about.
Sharing his story. If it can help.
Thank you for sharing it with all of Chattanooga. Guys, that means so much to
There's one veteran out there, like you, David, that's dealing with this but hasn't seeking help.
Absolutely. That's my
help.
goal in being here today. That's my goal in writing these books and everything that I'm doing regarding PTSD for my brother veterans. That's my goal.
Let's hear David's song from Operation Song, And I Sit.
I don't dwell on my past. My past dwells on me. Why not just forget I'm asked? It's not that easy. I don't sit and think about my PTSD. have junk fused in my brain. No place else for it to go. Intrusive thoughts that I retain. They happened a long time ago. Tried 10 docs within a year. They put me on 12 different meds. They tried lending me an ear. They can't grasp my thoughts inside their heads. I don't dwell on my past. My past dwells on me. Why not just forget I'm asked? It's not that easy. I don't sit and think about my PTSD. My PTSD thinks about me, and I sit. Battle leaves all kinds of scars. Not all heroes have to bleed. They don't give purple hearts for the wounds you cannot see. We all die for war. Some are hit and lost right away. Some come home and hide behind closed doors and die little every day. I don't dwell on my past. My past dwells on me. Why not just forget I'm asked? It's not that easy. I don't sit and think about my PTSD. My PTSD thinks about me, and I see. I don't sit and think about my PTSD. My PTSD thinks about me, and I see.
Wow, and David, I told myself I was going to be strong for you today, and then I'm listening to your song. And now I'm struggling a little bit. The song is called "And I Sit." David Rose wrote it for Operation Song. Now, David, you've been offered a role in a PTSD movie.
Yes, that's correct. I received a phone call from the producer last night, and I've been accepted to play a role in a movie that's starting filming in August, or at least my portion of it starts in August, and it's going to be called Iron Will, and I submitted a screen test, and they viewed it yesterday and gave me the positive call. So I'm excited about that, to be able to continue my mission for our veterans.
Well, and I know it has to be difficult because once again, you're out there, you're laying it all out there and telling your story and bearing your heart and soul so that other people can benefit from that. That's an amazing thing that you're doing.
Exactly. That's why I'm enduring all of this, and hoping that my witness and my exposure can draw in other veterans who are hurting and in pain and not knowing what to do about it.
David Rose, you're my hero. I love you so much.
Thank you.
I'm just so proud of you. And you did way better than me today. So. Oh my gosh, 8:15. Operation Song. If you know a veteran that needs help, operationsong.org. Just go to the website. There's so much information there. And if you can make a donation to this amazing organization, we'll take it from there too. 8:16, it's Mac and Cheese in the morning.